Terumos. Let's go.
Okay. Vav. Figs, grapes, cucumbers, gourds, melons, or muskmelons that have been gnawed, even if they were as much as a kikar, whether large or small, whether detached or attached, if they contain moisture, they are forbidden. Bitten by a snake, it is forbidden because of the danger to life.
That's an animal that was bitten by a snake. So not that it suddenly transitions to talking about
Right.
not from fruits, but from animals themselves that were bitten.
When they say it contains moisture, that means that you see some kind of liquid or something.
It means it's not dried out.
Right, because I'm looking, when I looked at these, the figs, the grapes, the cucumbers, they all have moisture in them. So it's like
Yeah,
hard to tell
right.
whether.
Is that if they're dried out, then that's different. Then if it's dried, so
But the moisture could
um,
come from the fruit itself.
yeah, that's right. Um, but when it's but if it's dry, then first of all the snake wouldn't have bitten it, and
Uh,
secondly the venom would have no way of spreading out because if there's no liquid to spread it.
right. Okay. I saw it. Deron says to me, I enjoy your shear. So he says to me, I enjoy your shear. You know. I said, okay. I said, I hope it's okay. So I said, sometimes it's okay. A wine strainer is forbidden because it is uncovered, but the Kemia permits this. If a doubt of uncleanliness arose during a jar of truma, Rabbi Eliezer says if it was lying in an exposed place, he should put it in a hidden place. If it was uncovered, he should cover it. But Rabbi Yeshua says it lay in a hidden place, he should put it in an exposed place. And if it was covered, he should uncover it. Rabbi Gil says let him do nothing new about it. Okay.
Okay. Mishnah Tes Chavis Shenishbara Begasa Eliona. All right. So our situation over here, our situation over here is where you've got a wine press, and inside the vat you've got some chulin wine, which is also tame. They weren't particular about the pressing. It wasn't. There was. There's nothing wrong with it. You can have tame wine, but the problem is that somebody now went and um, spilled a barrel of spilled some trimmer wine into the top, and it's busy running down towards the vat.
Right.
Okay, so now you have a dilemma. One, as soon as the trimmer wine is falls into the vat, first of all, it's going to become tame. Second of all, it's going to become puzzle to any. It's going to become meduma, and nobody's going to be able to have it. Not Kohanim, not the Israelim, because for Israelim it's got truma in it, and for
Right.
Kohanim it's tame. It's tame truma. So the whole batch is gonna get lost. Now, what are your options for saving the swine? One is if you have some kalim right nearby, you can stick them in and quickly grab the trimmer wine and try and stop it from or dam it up or do whatever you can to try and stop the trimmer wine from going into the vat. Now the thing is that if you don't have any tahor kalim, let's say your kalim are tame, all the kalim that you got nearby are tame, then you're going to be being matame this wine biyadayim. You're actively going to be matame it, as opposed to letting it passively fall into the vat, in which case it'll become tame without your intervention. Okay. On the other hand, you have a possibility of if you have a possibility of saving any of the trimmer wine, maybe you have a chiyuv too. So this is basically the situation that we get thrown into with Rabbi Yeshua and Rabbi Eliezer arguing about this point over here. Okay, so the happy path where everyone agrees is, let's say you happen to have a tahor kli nearby that is at least a revius.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Mode Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Yeshua, she'im yachol lahatzil mimenu revius betara yatzil. So then if he can save a revius of wine, then let him save it with the and even if that means that he's going to have to let his wine in the vat be forfeit. He's going to try because all he can get is that one revius of wine, and now that he can save. Revius being the minimum share for a significant amount of drink.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so then he has to save. But imlav, Rabbi Eliezer Omer, tered v'titame v'al yitameinu b'yadayim. And he says, if you don't have tahor kelim at hand, then too bad. That you can't intervene. You can't make the wine tame. And we'll see that Rabbi Yeshua disagrees with him in 2 Mishnayos time, because the 3 Mishnayos that we're going to learn today are a set. And fortunately, it breaks out nicely in the cycle that we have, that we're learning all 3 on the same day. Okay, so Mishnah Yud has a similar case. You have a barrel of oil that's truma oil, and fell onto the ground. Now, oil that fell into the ground is not going to all seep into the ground immediately. You've got a few seconds, minutes, however long it takes before it's going to drain into the ground. If you can save a revius, then save it. Rabbi Eliezer Omer tered v'tibala v'al yivala'ena biyadav. Let it sink into the ground, but don't push it in. Don't try and save it with your hands, because with your hands you're going to be actively making it tamei, assuming your hands are tamei, which is the case over here. Assuming that your hands are tamei, you can't even save it, even though tamei oil has got a use. Tamei truma oil has got a use. You can burn it. Right. But Rabbi Eliezer says, even so, rather let it sink into the ground. You cannot intervene and actively make it tamei.
I mean, a revius is not a lot. It's not, depending on the size.
Kiddush cup. Kiddush cup.
Excuse me?
When you think of revius, we think of Kiddush cup.
Right. So I mean, there's a reason why they want you to try to save this, But it's not a lot. It's a little bit. That's it. All right. Not really a question.
Okay. All right. And now then comes Rabbi Yeshua in Mishnah Yud Aleph. Alzo ve'alzo amar Rabbi Yeshua lo hi truma shani muzhar alea milatama. Says the issur of making truma tamei is not said in this case, where it's going to become tamei anyway. If you can save some of it for some purpose, in other words, you are allowed to intervene. So saying that if you're not going to be able to save a revius b'tara, then grab tamei kalim. Grab tamei kalim and save whatever you can. So in the case, let's just start with the oil case, because that's a little simpler. It says if there's oil in the ground and you can't save it, and you can't get it into tahor kalim, then get it into tamei kalim. Get it into your hands, whatever you can. Save the oil, and then you can, even if you're being mitamei it, because it's going to be lost otherwise anyway. So he says this is not even with your hands. He disagrees with Rabbi Eliezer and says you can make it tamei if it's going to be lost anyway. So you're actually saving it and bringing it to a high level, as opposed to being lost. At least let it be shemen streifer that the kohen can use for his lighting. Okay, and similarly with the wine vat, is saying you want to say the wine is going to be lost anyway. So if you can save your chulin wine by putting the truma wine into tamei kalim, then put it into tamei kalim. Either way, it's going to be lost. So even though you're not even going to get any benefit from the truma wine by making it tamei, at least you can save your chulin wine from being lost by putting it into tamei kalim. And Rabbi Yeshua says that's okay. Okay. The only thing that's asked here is going to be to eat it. Okay. So where is the case where I agree with you that there's an issur of making truma tamei? If he was, let's say he was traveling, and the kohen was traveling, and he's got a bunch of truma loaves in his sack. Right. Amar l'nochri. So a goy comes and robs him. It says and sticks a knife in his face and says, "Ten li achas mehen v'atama." Give me one of your truma loaves. And he knows, obviously, the nochri touches it, it's immediately going to become tamei. V'im lav harei ani metamei es kulan. And if you don't give me one, I'm going to go and be metamei all of them. Okay. Rabbi Eliezer Omer, Yatame es kulan. Rabbi Eliezer says you can't actively help the Nochri. You can't hand over a role to the Nochri so that he can be Matame that. Rather, he's got to submit and say, I'm not doing anything. You do whatever you do.
Yeah.
Va'al yiten lo achas mehen v'itame. Rabbi Yeshua Omer, Yaniach lefanav achas mehen ala sela. He says, in this case, you can't directly hand it to him to be matame, but you can say, okay, here it is, and put it down on the ground in front of him. So now he can do whatever he wants to it. You're not actually doing anything to be matame the one loaf, and what you're seeing over here is a fairly consistent position between Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yeshua. So that Rabbi Eliezer says you're not allowed to do anything. Sheva al taseh. Whatever happens, you cannot participate in any way in allowing Truma to become Tameh. And Rabbi Yeshua is saying, well, there's a big picture here. And if the big picture is that you can save a greater loss by doing something, then you can do it. But in this particular case, says Rabbi Yeshua, you don't hand the loaf directly to the Nochri, because there you're being Tameh b'yadayim. So then put it down on the rock, and he will and let him touch it if he wants to touch it, but don't do it yourself.
It seems from these three Mishnayos that there's a sense of I don't know how to describe it properly. The sense of that the truma, is an elevated level, and so
Yes.
we're going to even I'm answering my own question. I guess even saving a little bit of that wine or the oil is taking it so it doesn't get spoiled, so it doesn't lose its you want to call it kedusha or whatever. It's
yeah. So it doesn't become tameh.
Right.
Yep.
You want to try to hold it up, and the same with the chulin. Right. Okay. All right.
Well, the chulin, there's no mitzvah to keep chulin tahor.
Just the truma.
Just the truma. But actually there was the Chaverim used to be machmir about eating their chulin altaris hekdesh. Altaris or altaris truma, because they wanted to be in the habit of being tahor for all of their foods, including the chulin. So there was a chumrah of such a type during the time of the mikdash, that people wanted to be in the habit of always eating batara, even if it's chulin. Okay, hey Zain.
If a saw of truma fell into 100, and one lifted it out, and another one fell in, and he lifted it out, and another one fell in, it is permitted until the truma exceeds the chulin. If a saw of truma fell into 100, and before one could lift it out, another fell in, it's forbidden. But Reb Shimon permits. If a saw of truma fell into 100, and one ground them, and they became less, just as the chulin becomes less, so the truma became less, and it is permitted. If a saw of truma fell into less than 100, and one ground them, and they increased, just as the chulin increased, so the truma increased, and it's forbidden. If it is known that the chulin, when wheat is superior to that of truma, it is permitted. If a saw of truma fell into less than 100, and chulin fell in 3, if afterwards if accidentally, it is permitted. If intentionally, it's forbidden.
Right, intentional bittul results in bad things.
Right.
And you get punished for doing things intentionally like that. Okay, Shvius Hey Vav.
There are implements which a craftsman may not sell in the 7th year. A plow and all its equipment, a yoke, a winnow, a mattock, but one may sell a hand sickle, a scythe, and a cart with all its equipment. This is the principle. Anything that serves exclusively for transgression is forbidden, for the prohibited and for the permitted is allowed. The potter may sell 5 oil jars and 15 wine jars, for this is the unusual amount one collects from ownerless property. If he bought more than this, it's permitted, and if he may sell to a non-Jew in Eretz Israel and to a Jew outside Israel, Eretz Israel. But Beit Shammai says one may not sell him a plowing cow in the 7th year, but Beit Hillel permits because he can slaughter it. One may sell him produce even at sowing time, and he may lead him his saw to measure through. He knows that he has a threshing floor, and he may change money for him, though he knows that he has weak workers. But if expressly, all are forbidden.
It's a difference here between Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel. Is Beis Shammai is saying if the chances are, if this is something that's generally used for something that's aser, you can't sell it to him. And Beis Hillel say, well, no, if there's something that he can use it for that's mutar, then you don't have to worry about it. It's not your business unless he actually tells you that I want to use this to do an avera. Then you can't help him. Brachas hey daled.
If one says whoever goes before the Ark shall not answer a man after the Kohanum, because he might become confused. If no Kohen is present except him, he must not raise his hands. But if he is confident that he can raise his hands and resume his tefillah, he is permitted. If one commits an error in his recitation of the tefillah, it is bad. It's a bad omen for him, and if he is a congregational reader, it is a bad omen for those who sent him, because a man's agent is as himself. They said of Rabbi Chanina Bakdosa that he would pray for the sick and say, "This one will live. That this one will live, that one will die." They asked him, "How do you know?" He said to them, "If the prayer is fluent in my mouth, I know it's accepted, and if not, I know that it's rejected." What blessing does one make over fruit? On fruit of the trees, one says, "Who creates the fruit of the tree?" except for the wine. For on wine, one says, "Who creates the fruit of the vine?" And on fruits of the earth, one says, "Who creates the fruit of the earth?" except for the bread. For on bread, one says, "Who brings forth bread from the earth?" The soil. On vegetables, one says, "Who creates the fruit of the soil?" And Yehuda says, "Who creates diverse kinds of herbs?"
It says Borei Minei Deshaim, which is a bracha that nobody's ever heard of because that's not the halacha.
Oh.
Okay. Olos Perek Yod.
If there is a skylight that is the size of a square handbreadth in a house, and there is tumah in the house, whatever is directly opposite the skylight remains tahor. If the tumah is directly opposite the skylight, the house remains tahor. Whether the tumah is in the house or directly opposite the skylight, a person who places his foot above the skylight combines the tumah. If part of the tumah is in the house and part of it is opposite the skylight, the house becomes tameh, and whatever is directly opposite the tumah also becomes tameh. If the skylight is smaller than a square handbreadth, and there is tumah in the house, whatever is directly opposite the skylight remains tahor, and if the tumah is directly opposite the skylight, the house remains tahor. If the tumah is in the house and a person places his foot above the skylight, the person remains tahor. If the tumah is opposite the skylight and a person places his foot above the skylight, Reb Meir declares him tameh. However, the Kohanum say if the tumah preceded the floor, the person becomes. What did I say? Truma.
Is it truma? Yeah.
If the tumah preceded the foot, the person remains tameh, and if the foot preceded the tumah, he remains tahor. Reb Shimon says if 2 feet 1 inch above the other preceded the tumah. Reb Yossi says that the tumah is large enough that when divided in half, it can contaminate both the house and whatever is opposite the tumah. They are both tameh. If not, the house becomes tameh, and whatever is opposite the tumah is tahor.
Second, I want to see the Rabbi Shimon's case again. Derek Limazol gav zosh kadmu es tumah. So the two people had their feet over the hole in the ceiling that were there before the tumah, and then the tumah went underneath it. So at the moment the Chachamim was saying, well, it's tahor because there's no gap in the roof. Then the first guy takes away his foot, and the second guy's foot is on top, and there's a fraction of a second before it drops over. So they say nonetheless it's tahor. Because the first guy's foot was there, then the tumah has no way of escaping.
Okay, that's it, right?
Gimel as well.
I think I read Gimel.
Miktas tumah b'mayis. No,
I thought it did. Okay. If part of the tumah is in the house and part of it opposite the skylight, the house becomes tameh, and whatever is opposite the tumah also becomes tameh. These are the words of Reb Meir. Reb Yehuda says the house becomes tameh, but whatever is opposite the skylight remains tahor. Reb Yossi says that the tumah is large enough, and when divided in half, it can contaminate both the house and whatever is opposite the tumah. They are both tameh, and if not, the house becomes tameh, and whatever is opposite the tumah is tahor. Now, I did read that, but I think I turned the page that would Okay, never mind.
Oh, okay.
My mistake. As
Fine.
usual.
Arios. Clear space.
Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava and Rabbi Yehuda HaKohen testified concerning a minor, the daughter of a Yisrael, who married a Kohen, that she may eat truma once she has entered the chuppah, even though her marriage has not been consummated. Rabbi Yossi the Kohen and Rabbi Zechariah ben HaKatav testified concerning a young girl who was given as a pledge in Ascalon, and her family thereafter distanced her. However, her witnesses testified regarding her that she had not secluded herself and she had not been violated. The Kohanum say to the family, if you believe that she was given as a pledge, believe as well that she did not seclude herself with an idolater and was not violated. And if you not believe that what she did, and if you do not believe that she did not seclude herself and that she was not violated, do not believe that she was given as a pledge.
So that's one of these cases of a pesha aser or pesha hitir, where because the Adam coming to say that she was with the same Adam who said that she was that she was oh wait, no, it's actually not. It's not. It's not a pesha or pesha. It's different Adam. Was it the same Adam? Because they say if you believe them. What's Adam? Yeah, it's the same Adam. It's the same Adam. So it's a pesha shas or a pesha hitter. Okay. Fine. Carry on, Gimel.
Dalit, no?
Yeah, no, we haven't done Gimel yet.
No, I turned the page. Rabbi Yeshua and Rabbi Yehuda ben Becerra testified concerning an Issa widow. That Reb Shimon ben Gamliel said to them, we accept your testimony, but what can you do about this in practice? When Reb Yochanan ben Zakkai had decreed not to seat courts for this purpose. For the Kohanum will heed you to distance, but not to bring close. Reb Yossi ben Yozer, the leader of Tizarada, testified about the Isle grasshopper, that it is tahor, and he testified that the beverages of the temple's butchering place, that they are tahor. He testified that one who touched the corpse is tameh, and they called him Yossi the Permitter. Okay.
Yossi the Makel.
Right.
Okay.
All right.
Chagiga Aleph Ches.
The regulations covering release from vows hover in the air, have no firm scriptural support. Certain laws of Shabbos, Chagiga, and Mila are like the mountains suspended by a hair, for they are few. Scriptural references and many laws. The regulations governing property law, the sacrificial services, purity and contamination, and illicit relationships have firm scriptural support, and all of these are essentials of the Torah.
Right. So they're saying that there's so much in halacha. Some of it is firmly grounded and explicit in the Torah, and some of it is a little bit woolly, and some of it is just like completely halacha l'moshe Sinai, and all of it is Torah.
Okay. We may expound neither on the subject of illicit relationships to a group of three, nor on the account of the creation to a group of two, nor on the account of the mechava to an individual, unless he is wise and understanding to his own knowledge. Whoever speculates on four things, it would be better for him that he had not come into the world. What is above, what is below, what was before, and what will be after. Similarly, whoever has no regard for the honor of his maker, he would be better for him that he had not come into the world.
What does it mean that he has no regard for the honor of his maker? The Gemara explains that this is somebody who does averos in private, because he's pushing away the Shechina. He says the Shechina is not here, and who's going to see me? Who's going to know anything about it? So he thinks that God doesn't know. That's better. He shouldn't have been created.
Yossi ben Yozer says not to learn the hands on the head of a sacrifice.
Lean, not to lean.
Oh my gosh. Ben Yosef says not to lean the hands of the head on a sacrificial animal on Yom Tov. Yossi ben Yochanan says to lean. Yeshua ben Pekiah says not to lean. Nita the Arbalite says to lean. Yehuda ben Tabai says not to lean. Shimon ben Shadak says to lean, and Shemaiah says to lean. Avtalan says not to lean. Hilla and Menachem did not disagree. Menachem left office. Shammai entered, and Shammai says not to lean, and Hill says to lean. The former of the respective pairs were Nisim, the latter were heads of the Beit Din.
Okay.
Shammai
So
says
it seems it says that's it. We're done there. But it's interesting how in all the pairs, all the zugos of the Nasi and the Beit and the Av Beis Din, they were always arguing about whether to do smicha on Yom Tov. You know, smicha is leaning on the animal for you.
Right.
Okay.
We have that whole thing.
Is done.
Is that the first? No, that's not the first mission in Beah. First mission in Beah. Maybe I think it was about the leaning. Somewhere the first.
No, the first mission in Beitza is about Beitza.
Right. Don't tell my Kravusa. But there's some part in there, one of those missions that we did already, that is about the leaning. Beit Shammai and Beit Hillel. That's the whole.
Yeah.